Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Effort. My name's Nehemiah, and today we're going to check out this piece of metal, the Justin Lundquist EZC. This is produced by Monterey Bay Knives. It's made by Kizer. This knife is on loan from one of my viewers. He loaned me a whole bunch of knives, and originally when he sent me this knife, the action wasn't really all that good. I got into the knife and cleaned it out, got it put back together, and I think it's pretty much what it should be, and so now it's time to review the sucker. Let's do a size comparison. Here is the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. It's a small little knife. Blade length is pretty short. We could do a quick measurement here. So less than 3 inches. Cutting edge is about 2.75 inches, I would say. Just enough grip area for most people to get a 3-finger grip, maybe if you got really small hands, 4 fingers. And then we'll do a quick weigh-in. Here we go. It's a pretty small little knife, right at 3 ounces, so pretty much an ounce an inch on the weight ratio. Okay, let's dive into the dent, the decent, the excellent, the nitpicks, and the terrible of this piece of metal. First off, in the decent is that weight. Being such a small knife, the weight is really a huge deal, because if it's a small knife but a heavy knife, kind of defeats the purpose. Usually you want both to go hand in hand. So here, it's definitely a positive thing. Ergos are interesting. I have pretty small hands, so it's just enough to get a full 4 fingers. So for me, it's totally fine, but I could totally see if somebody has a bigger hand than I do, the finger kind of falling off a little bit, and it might be a little bit uncomfortable. It's not really the best knife for choking up. You can put it there, but I mean, you're tilted into the heel of the knife. I wouldn't really recommend it, but it's sort of doable. So keep that in mind. Overall, I think it's pretty good. There's no hot spots on the knife otherwise, and I'm pretty pleased with the ergos. Let's talk about the blade. I really like the stonewash finish that they have on this. Nice, polish on there. It's playing with the light. It's going to hide scratches really, really well. Really, really, really good finish on the blade. As far as the blade shape goes, this is about as standard as you can get. Just classic drop point. Not quite a spear point, but almost. You've got Ray Lacanico's, branding here on the back. That's a nice place to put it. Similar to the Keen that he designed. Very subtle. It keeps the blade really, really clean and just free. He's got the Monterey Bay Knives little logo on the back. Just a very clean design. Now, this is S35VN. It doesn't have that branded on it. You just have to know, but it is S35VN, which is good. That's excellent. The knife, most importantly, cuts really well. So the thinness of the grind, the blade stock, and the thickness behind the edge ends up being really nice. As you can see right here, just really thin behind the edge. So good little cutter. It's not, super long, so there's certain cuts that it's gonna, be difficult for, but for the most part, I think you'll not have any problems. Next, I want to talk about the clip. Now, the clip is good. It's decent. Hence being in the decent section. It's reasonably good retention. It's a little bit tighter than I would want it to be, but the shape of it, you can get it in and out, and they've done a good job of chamfering the snot out of it. So I think normally if they didn't pay special attention to this, it would be kind of a sharp, jaggedy clip. Just it's so square right in the middle. Lastly is the lanyard hole. Next is the lanyard hole. Now, this isn't taking precedence over the clip, so I don't have anything negative to say. It's kind of up and out of the way, so it's not a big deal at all. I think it's totally fine. Next decent thing is the price. This is coming in at $180. I think for a small little titanium frame lock flipper that has good steel with S35 I think that's in a reasonable price. I could totally see them trying to charge $240 or $220 somewhere in there, which I think it's just too much. And so kind of competitively pricing this at $180, I think is really going to make it a sweet spot in terms of value, which I like to shout out. Next, we're going to look at the OCD, the open, the close, and the disengage of the knife. This is where we really zoom in and pay special attention to the action of the knife. It definitely got a lot better after I got in there and cleaned it up. It was a little bit gritty, but after a good cleaning, it did get marginally better. On the open, I think is probably the best of the three. It's got a snappy little detent. It feels good on the open. The flipper tab works decently well. I'll talk more about that in the nitpicks. You can't do push button, but you can do light switch reasonably well. And it sounds good and it feels good. You're not going to fail the actual opening as long as your finger doesn't fall off the flipper tab. And that's good. As far as disengage goes, you got two little chamfers on the inside here to try to help with this problem. Barely enough room to get in there to move the lock bar over. There's no lock stick. If there was lock stick and it was hard to get access to the lock bar, I would really be off this knife. But you can do it. It's not something I want to do over and over and over because it's just not comfortable to kind of jam your thumb in there to get the lock bar moved over. But it's fine. It's okay. On the close, it's a little bit more of a problem. It's not going to be like really all that drop shutty in the slightest. It's such a light little blade, and it's not tuned enough, I think, to really get, if I really whip it down, I can get it to close, but it's not anywhere close to like a one-handed, run through the paces, open, close, disengage over and over and over again. The close is really going to slow you down, and the disengage is really going to just annoy you with how hard it is to access. Overall, it's in the decent. I think people don't care as much about the disengage or the close as they do the open, and the open is really stellar. So overall, it's going to be in the decent. For the excellent, I have just one thing, and I guess it's kind of the simple, clean design that this is pulling off. Not everybody is into that, but assuming that your interest in this knife is you look at it and you like the look of it and you've clicked on a review to see it, you're probably in the camp of you like the design. Very straightforward, very clean lines. It's, not visually complex in the slightest. And usually that is a good thing in terms of just general design, not just for a knife. And I like that. I mean, that's kind of Ray Lacanico's calling card, is just how simple, how straightforward can the knife be, but still be, functional and good. And it's definitely doing that. Let's move on to the nitpicks. I do have a few things here. I mentioned the lock bar access. I think a lot of knives do this, where you don't want to break this line on the scale. You just want a straight line. And so they're unwilling to put kind of that lock bar access, groove into it, where you can actually see the lock bar from the other side. And I get it, it might make the knife look a little bit wonky, but if I could get to this lock bar a little bit easier and not have to jam my thumb in there, I would really be a lot more positive on the knife, realizing that I am kind of an action snob. So whatever, I'm always going to take function over form in cases like that, and I think that decision is more based on the aesthetics than the practicality, so I'm going to slap their hand. Now, some people, if you're just watching this video because you watch all my videos, hi grandma, then maybe this might be a little too simple for you. And there's something that a knife needs to bring to the table that is not boring. There's a million titanium frame lock flippers, and while I like the keen just strikes a chord with me, and I can't really put my finger on why I like the keen so much better than this, but I think it might just be a little too basic for me. The keen has a little bit more of a sweeping motion to it. It's a little bit more organic while it's maintaining its simplicity, and this is just, I don't know, it's not enough flair for me. I think I'm in the minority there, but it is what it is. I mentioned this earlier. The flipper tab is just a little slippery. If you could push button it, it wouldn't be too much of a problem because, it isn't a very sharp flipper tab, which is good. It's not going to be much of a pocket pecker or anything like that. But if it had maybe a little bit jimping or just a different shape, it is easy to kind of fall off of the flipper tab. The entire knife as a whole is kind of slippery. There's just not a lot of texture there. So if you are chronically sweaty or you're in a humid area or something like that, you might have a hard time grabbing onto the knife. Another thing, and I don't knock this on every single knife, but the pivot is free spinning, and I don't know, that just kind of annoys me. I feel like this is a knife that you're going to need to get into and clean pretty often. Just stuff falling right in onto that bearing racetrack, and I think being able to get into the knife a little bit easier would go a long way. For the terrible, I don't really have anything terrible to say about the knife. I guess I can mention that there were reports of just kind of poor fit and finish on the knife. I think they sorted that out. It's hard to tell, with just one copy of the knife, but I didn't have the issues that some of the reviewers were having, and I think this knife was just made later, and they kind of hammered some of those issues out. So that could just be this is randomly a good copy, but it's also they might have just figured it out. So take that with a grain of salt. For my conclusion, I think this is going to be a knife that you kind of look at it and you just know. This is either your jam and you're going to love it and it's going to be one of your favorite knives, or it's just not and it's kind of boring and you'll take a pass on it. I think it's executed pretty well. As far as Kizer knives go, this is probably one of the best examples I can point to. They're kind of, I don't know, I feel like Kizer's a little bit on the down tick lately as far as just their execution goes, and this I think has been hammered out a little bit more than what their average work has been lately, and so I guess that's a positive thing. I like to say good things about knife companies, and so good job, Kizer. Keep it more like this and not like your other outings, and I think you'll be doing better. I hope this was helpful to you. I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!